In this presentation, we will review the conditional, el condicional, and then we will learn how to form and how to use the conditional perfect, el condicional perfecto. You should recall the forms of the conditional, which you have already learned. El condicional is the tense that communicates the idea of the English word would. In English, you have to insert would in a sentence to create this tense or this mood, actually. So, for example, you would say, I would go to Spain if I had the money. I wouldn't do that if I were you. We have to insert an extra word. However, in Spanish, that idea of would is not in a separate word. We simply put an ending on the end of our infinitive, and it creates the idea of would. This is similar to what we did with future tense. For future, will, all we had to do was add on an ending onto the end of the infinitive to create the idea of will or future. The same is for would or conditional. So we start out with the infinitive, as you already know, hablar, comer, vivir, and we just add on the letters IA plus any extra letters to denote what person you're referring to. For example, the first one, hablaría, means I would speak. Well, where's the would? It's contained in there because you have the IA or the IA on the end. Tú hablarías, you would speak. Usted, él, ella hablaría. Nosotros hablaríamos, we would speak. Vosotros hablaríais. And ustedes, ellos, ellas hablarían, they would speak. So once again, same as future, we use the same endings for all three conjugations. You don't have to learn separate ones for ER, for IR, for AR. They're all the same. Muy bien? Muy bien. So this is how we form the conditional or the idea of would. So this works once again for all verbs in Spanish except for the same dirty dozen that we had in the future. So you'll see on this chart or this table here, you'll see that we have this exact same 12 irregular verbs from the future we have now in the conditional. So we take this verb, the first verb example, decir, the verb to say. We take its special root form, which is dir, and we add on ia on the end of it, ia, and then we have the word, the idea of would. So rather than saying deciría, we say in Spanish diría. Diría, and diría means I would say or I would tell. So the second one, hacer, to do or to make, put on ia and its friends on the end of har, and you've got the expression I would do or I would make. So yo haría, I would make or I would do. Poder, to be able. Poner, to put. Pondría, I would put. The verb querer, see how the R doubles. Saber, to know. Salir, to go out, for example. How would we say we would go out? We would say saldríamos. S-A-L-D-R and then íamos, saldríamos. Tener, of course, would be tendría. How would we say they would have? Tendrían. Venir, to come. You would come in the to form. Vendrías. Once again, the verb valer means to be worth. Valdría is how we would say that in conditional. Caber significa to fit. And the last one, haber. Now, haber is once again the verb where we get H-A-Y. H-A-Y meaning there is or there I, there is or there are. There has to be in Spanish a way to say there would be. So we actually use haber in this form that has the asterisk next to it, habría, and that's how we would say there would be. So that is the conditional of the word I. So if I wanted to say, for example, there would, if it weren't raining, there would be a party. We would say habría una fiesta. So habría is how we say the conditional or the would form of the expression I. There is or there are. Muy bien. So except for these 12 that I call the dirty dozen here that have a special root form. Otherwise, you just add on those 6 endings, ia, ias, ia, iamos, iais, ian, onto the end of an infinitive, and then you have the idea of would, el condicional. Muy bien. Okay, let's continue on now and talk about the conditional perfect, what we call el condicional perfecto. Well, remember, whenever we're talking about perfect tenses, perfect always refers to verb tenses that involve the verb have. We've already learned present perfect, like I have worked. We learned pluperfect by saying I had worked. And we also learned future perfect, which would be I will have worked. Well, ahora tenemos el condicional perfecto. Se puede combinar formas del condicional del verbo haber con el participio pasado para formar el condicional perfecto. So we can take the verb haber and use its conditional forms and combine it with the past participles that you've already learned to create what we call the condicional perfecto, the conditional perfect. So let's take a look at that. The conditional of the verb haber looks like one of the dirty dozen. In fact, it is one of the dirty dozen. So habría, yo habría means I would have. The would is already contained in there. Be very careful to notice that this has the letter R in it. In fact, let's look right there. You see Habria, habría. If you forget to put the R in there, you'll have the word había, which means had, which we already learned. That's past perfect. So you don't want to say había something because that means I had. You want to make sure you say habría and have that R trill sound in there. Yo habría. So just one letter difference makes a big difference tense-wise. So let's practice saying these. Habría, habrías, habría, habríamos, habríais, habrían. Muy bien. And then we combine that with the past participles that you've already learned, and that's how we get conditional perfect, meaning I will have done something. For example, let's take the first one. Dice, yo habría jugado. Yo habría jugado. I would have played. Tú habrías comido. You would have eaten. Él habría ido. He would have gone. Remember, ido is the past participle of the verb ir. Ir is often very irregular, but in this tense, it's not irregular. Nosotros habríamos tenido. We would have had. Ustedes habrían comprendido. You all would have understood. Muy bien. So we just combine this, the habría forms, with a past participle to form what we call the conditional perfect. Muy bien. All right, let's take a look at some examples, see how we use this. Similarly to the future perfect, the conditional perfect is not a tense that you use very often. Once again, you probably go several days without ever having to say this particular type of sentence. They usually come up in a condition contrary to fact situation. All right, and we'll actually talk about how to form condition contrary to fact in a later chapter. But we can use the conditional perfect without a contrary to fact statement. So let's look at some examples. Ellos fueron a Panamá, pero yo habría viajado al Ecuador. What are we saying here? They went to Panamá. Here's an example of preterite that you learned in Spanish 101 or 102. Ellos fueron a Panamá. They went to Panama, but I would have traveled to Ecuador. So there's the would have right there, habría, and viajado is the past participle of the verb viajar, to travel. So in the green right there, habría viajado, I would have traveled. Muy bien, vamos a ver otro ejemplo. Nosotros habríamos sacado una A en el examen, pero no estudiamos lo suficiente. So what happened in this case? Well, it says we would have gotten an A on the exam, but we didn't study enough. Sacar is the verb to take out, but it's also the word we use in Spanish for to get when you're referring to a grade. So nosotros habríamos sacado. We would have gotten an A. Habríamos sacado. So you can see there's a situation that didn't come out the way we wanted to, and that's often how we use the conditional perfect. Let's look at another example. ¿Qué habrías hecho en mi lugar? ¿Qué habrías hecho en mi lugar? We're asking, what would you have done in my place? So, would have, you would have is right there. There's the form of have. You would have, habrías. And there's the word done. Hecho is the past participle of the verb hacer. ¿Qué habrías hecho en mi lugar? What would you have done in my place? Muy bien. Okay, vamos a hacer una práctica as I have in the past. Let's do a práctica. We've got 4 sentences here. I'm going to leave out the verb form and I'm going to give you the verb in parentheses and we'll try to get the right conditional perfect form in the sentence. Yo blank al hospital, no a una clínica. Yo blank al hospital, no a una clínica. And then we have the verb ir, to go. So what are we trying to say here? Well, probably we want to say I would have gone to the hospital, not to a clinic. So I would have. Well, what would be the word would have? Well, we want the conditional form of the verb haber. So haber in conditional would be habría. And then we want the past participle of the verb ir. And ir's past participle is just the word ido. So to say I would have gone, yo habría ido al hospital. Yo habría ido al hospital. And usually because habría is a lot more vowel, there's a lot of vowel sounds, and then ido is vowel, it just runs together. Yo habría ido. And it just sounds like all one word put together. Yo habría ido al hospital. And that's actually good Spanish. You want to get to sound that way. Número 2. Mario me blank a la fiesta, pero yo no quería ir. Mario me blank a la fiesta, pero yo no quería ir. And then we have the verb acompañar. Acompañar means to accompany or to go with. And that's usually what we say in Spanish, to go with someone. So we want to say Mario would have gone or would have accompanied me. So Mario is the one that did, or in this case didn't do, the action. Mario would have accompanied me to the party, but I didn't want to go. So how would we say Mario would have? Well, the would have would be the third person singular of haber. And actually, it's going to look exactly like this because the yo form habría and the he/she form actually are identical. So we're also going to have habría right here for he. Mario me habría, and then we want the past participle of acompañar. Well, this is not irregular, so we're going to drop off the AR and put on ADO. So we would say, Mario me habría acompañado a la fiesta. He would have accompanied me to the party. Me habría acompañado. Pero yo no quería ir, but I didn't want to go. Número 3. Ellos no blank tanto para la joya. And the verb pagar. Ellos no blank tanto para la joya. Tanto means so much, para la joya for the jewelry or the jewel. So we want to say they would not have paid so much for the jewel. Would not have paid. Okay, would have, we're referring to ellos. So actually, once again, the nice thing, it's going to look very similar to this, habría, except they're dealing with ellos. And what letter do those verb forms always end in? The letter N. So instead of habría, here we're going to have habrían. And then the past participle of pagar is going to be very simple, similar to acompañar. Pagar would become pagado. So ellos no habrían pagado tanto para la joya. We're saying they would not have paid so much for the jewel. And the last one. Usted blank lo mismo. Usted blank lo mismo. Lo mismo, the same thing. And the verb decir. Decir, to say. So we're saying you would have said the same thing. Or probably we're asking, would you have said? Would you have said the same thing? So you would have. Once again, it's actually going to be very, very similar to the word habrían here, except with the usted form, it just won't have an N on it. So it would be habría, and then the past participle of the verb decir. This is an irregular past participle, so we don't drop off IR and put on IDO. This has a very particular form, which is dicho. So we would say, usted habría dicho lo mismo? Would you have said the same thing? ¿Usted habría dicho lo mismo? Muy bien. So I hope this has helped you understand um, how we form and how we use the conditional perfect en español. Muchas gracias por su atención, and we'll see you in the next presentación. Adiós.